Welcome to the nearest that the UK has ever got to the oil fields of Texas. Few today will remember that in our darkest hour, Winston Churchill turned to this quiet corner of Nottinghamshire to open an oil field, to drill for the high octane fuel that was needed to power our Spitfires, to win the Battle of Britain, to defeat Hitler and to secure the freedoms that we all enjoy today. Whilst Hitler's Luftwaffe was powered by inferior fuel, our Spitfires were powered on the fuel that was drilled beneath my feet here, in this little corner of England. Churchill kept the wells secret during the war, but they supplied over 2 million barrels of oil for the Royal Air Force, as well as to Normandy through the daring Pluto programme.
One of the greatest battles of the European war has been the battle for oil, that lifeblood of an army without which the invasion of Europe would never have been possible. We've heard of the 1,000-mile pipeline system throughout Britain, but how was enough oil and petrol to be got across the Channel to maintain the great invasion of 1944? The answer to this master problem is contained in one of the war's greatest stories of British ingenuity, Operation Pluto. P-L-U-T-O.
42 Americans came to help operate the UK's first land oil well, and thousands of local men and women helped on the site.
D-Day 1944, the invasion of France and the great test for Operation Pluto. The responsibility for laying the great lengths of pipe was borne by the Royal Navy, whose pipe-laying drums, known as HMS Conundrums, were soon engaged in laying the first petroleum supply line across the English Channel. As the armies pressed inland, Pluto lines were quickly established across the narrow part of the channel, carrying the bulk petroleum where it was most needed for the advance into Belgium and Holland. Helped by the flamethrowers of the Petroleum Warfare Department, Boulogne Harbour was captured and still more pipelines brought across the vital supplies of oil, which was soon flowing at the rate of 1 million gallons a day from the Mersey to the Rhine. The great operation was complete, and all along our vast fronts the mechanized masses rolled forward to victory. By the achievement of Operation Pluto, British brains and drive had carried out a most brilliant and daring feat, without which war might still be raging over the continent of Europe.
Fast forward to today, and over in Lancashire, the Quadrilla fracking wells sit safely drilled, capped and ready. They are our modern equivalent. Strategic reserves, national assets, ready to be used in extreme situations if, God forbid, our country was in peril once again. According to experts, by 2030 the UK will need at least 50 gigawatts of backup diesel or gas capacity just to keep our lights on. And yet, the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, wants to pour cement down those wells, permanently close them, make it impossible for future generations to make use of these assets. That is the definition of madness and irresponsibility. You don't burn the lifeboats just because you've got calm waters. No one I spoke to could fathom why Labour would do this to us.
I don't think that Miliband has any right whatsoever to demand that these resources are closed down just because he has a whim about the easiest way to get himself into the history books. He'll get himself into the history books in a very adverse way, in my opinion. So, like many people, I'm totally against any concept that we should be importing energy unless we absolutely have to, and we haven't got any ourselves.
The problem is that, we're trying to get to net zero, but a lot of the other countries are just carrying on. So It's 1% of the whole of the world. If we went to net zero, we'd make a difference.
I don't see what they're doing, just a waste of everybody's time, I think.
Very short-sighted.
Very short-sighted.
Yeah, but it is short-sighted, but then...
But then Labour are.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Sorry.
Keir Starmer wasn't moved at all when asked about this in Parliament.
The government is perfectly entitled on environmental grounds to not exploit such wells in normal conditions. But does he not recognise that in a desperate situation such as an international conflict where other sources of power were cut off from us, taking a decision now to concrete these things over so that a future government could not use them is an extremely irresponsible and reckless...
He knows there are real consequences of fracking, as I've set out. But what we need to do to secure our independence and lower bills and the next generation of jobs is move at speed to renewable energy. And that's why I'm pleased there's record investment coming into renewable energy so that tyrants like Putin can't put his boot on our throat. Now, if the party opposite don't want to support that investment, they should say so.
Let me be clear. This is not about whether you are for or against fracking and the economic and environmental arguments. This is about the safety, security, and resilience of our country and ensuring that our leaders take long-term decisions in the national interest to protect this country for future generations. We don't have energy security, and nor are we likely to anytime soon. Last year, the UK imported electricity in 91% of hours. That is the opposite of energy independence. We're importing more and more expensive liquefied natural gas from America. And Ed Miliband is taxing and regulating away our entire North Sea oil and gas sector, leaving us dangerously exposed at the best of times, let alone in national emergencies. Ed Miliband and Keir Starmer are letting their net zero zealotry, their ideology, get in the way of our national security. We need to stop this. We need to ensure that common sense prevails. And we need to treat our energy reserves, as Winston Churchill did, as a matter of national survival.